The most pastors enjoy the baptizing, especially little ones. It's always fun, and it's no exception to me either. And I have to warn you that I'll be behaving a little differently sometime in late September or October, because I'm going to baptize my first granddaughter here. So, yeah, thank you. If I behave a little differently, you all understand, and that will not be your concern, okay, at all. And my son-in-law and my daughter and my second daughter's family and everybody, my son, and all gathered together and witness Cheyenne's baptism. Baptism is a fun thing to do, but at the same time, it has a tough point too. That is, when you normally baptize the infant, sleeping for instance, you can sneak in and do all the liturgy as fast as you can. And make sure that the water temperature is the same as the body temperature, so that she or he wouldn't feel nothing. So by the time she walk up and start crying, too late. They already recess it. So congregation will not have to entertain that cry. But the tough ones are the ones like 4, 5, 6 years old. They are the ones. They have opinion, and once they express their opinion, they thought that their opinion should be everyone else's opinion. You know what I'm talking about. So this preacher was baptizing, and this guy started crying at the top of the lung, and it was so loud that it just the pastor cannot lead the liturgy, the reading, and making sense out of what he's doing. But he has to do it. So he did it. He read as fast as a motorcycle in 120 miles an hour, and he did the whole thing and sent him off. So on the way home, this guy kept on crying in the back seat. And the parents couldn't understand why this guy keep on crying. I mean, it had a wonderful service. He did all cry in the sanctuary, so they thought there was nothing left for him to cry. But he crying further. So Dad was asking, why are you crying? Stop crying. And he did it several times. And finally, the guy answered his dad saying, you know, the pastor want me to be brought up in a Christian family. And I don't want to leave you guys. It takes about 2 seconds for you to understand. Because you're all good. We're all leading Christian family. But at the same time, how we thought the Christian family could be very different from the eyes and perspective of little ones. And they all thought the Christian family should be this way, and these small guys could say, no, this is not the way the Christian family should behave or act out, and whatever that is. Listen, today, it's going to be a pretty tough topic because it all hit me too. The Pharisees and Sadducees are the ones that often popped out of the gospel, and each time they were mentioned, Christ and them were in the conflict all the time. Now, the content of the conflict is something that we don't understand. For instance, you heard Jenny read the text. It is the law about sanitation. If you follow this law, then you will be clean, and washing your hands so often, whatever the percentage of germs or whatever the possibility of you getting ill will be eliminated. You heard about this, right? So washing your hands so often, as Deb says, Deb has a little spray to kill the germs and bacteria and whatnot. You have to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. And the Pharisees accusing Christ's disciples eating with defiled hand, whatever that defile means. We take it as a dirty hands. You should wash your hand before you eat. I think Jesus' trouble with that was the word, the ritual. The ritual says that you have to wash your hands before you eat, instead of it's better for you to wash your hands so that the clean hands will protect you. It is a ritual from the tradition of elders that you must do this out of the ritualistic mind. And in fact, the Pharisees, you heard about them so many times. Pharisees is coming from the word paras. Paras means separated. It is not a friendly word, but that's the origin of the word. The Pharisees, they are coming from the separated group, so that they distinguish themselves from what we call ordinary people. And Zadok, for instance, is the word for Sadducees, meaning righteous. Yes, one is righteous and the other group is separated. And all the followers of Jesus Christ wasn't necessarily belong to either one of those groups. And the tradition there became the ritual. The ritual there became the law that goes beyond the human need. And at that point, they do not know whether law is for the humanity or God or relationship between them, or human beings should live for the law. There is a confusing moment that the rituals became the law, and the law goes dehumanizing the history. That's part of what we call the law. The ritual became the law, that whether it has a good purpose in it or not, it became the idol for you to worship. Many times in the human history, the law has been dehumanizing, and one of the things that we know is that from Hammurabi Code 2,700 years ago, like 600-700 years before Christ, or Christian common era, there is a Hammurabi Code. From that on down to Roman Code, all the way up to, let's say, mid-19th century, the dominating law has been, how do you control the slaves? Now, we are sitting in 21st century and enjoying a lot of different systems and social structures and so on and so forth. But we have been, up until 150 years ago, the dominating law has been how to control your slaves. No one said that except Marx. Karl said, if you look at the human history, majority of time has been the issue as to how to control your slaves. Now, when it comes to Roman law, which about 1900 years ago, it is designed in such a way that the 2% of population, 2% of blessed ones, the haves, the powerfuls, possess 80% of all the assets, all the stuff that there is available, and that 20% left is shared by vast population. 80% of the population has to share those assets. Oh, that's so primitive. Yes, it is primitive, but we've been doing that up until 150 years ago. Neanderthal, 2 million years ago. Cro-Magnon, 1.7 million years ago. Homo sapiens, 800,000 years ago. However you name those history, the schedules of human evolution, it is clear that we have had the slavery up until 150 years ago. That has been the tradition. We've done that, been there. We've been doing that all these years. So what's wrong with doing it now? Now, that's exactly the point where Jesus comes in. Listen, when the law is dehumanizing, and the law is to keep the status quo for the existing powerfuls and haves, the voice all of a sudden becomes social voice that is against the status quo of the haves, of the powerfuls, that it becomes cruel. It becomes a tool to crush down any revolting voices where Jesus fit. The first century when Jesus lived, Jesus was born about 4 or 5 years before BCE and lived about 33 years or so. He died about 30 AD. Around that time, the normal height of the man, if you are blue collar, then it will be about 5 feet or a little less than 5, shorter than 5 feet. Their average life will be mid-30s. Lifespan will be mid-30s. Those 2%, the haves and powerfuls, are the ones who lived 70 years, 80 years. So that the wisdom and such a skill to maneuver the structure to keep their haves and power together, not sharing with them, there is no comparison. That's where Jesus stepped in. And all the religious parties, Pharisees and Sadducees, especially Sadducees, are the ones who entertain the powerful ones. They have deeper relationship with the powerfuls. So that the Sadducees, the elite religious leaders, are in harmony with what they call the powerfuls. And the Pharisees is no different. To maintain that, knowing the fact that they cannot live up to this perfect law, Pharisaic law, 613 items from Moses down to Deuteronomy and other books, they have to be hypocrites. They say what they believe, but they do not do what they said they believe. Simply the hypocrisy is such that, you can justify that, hypocrisy, that's simply the part of life. It is a cognitive dissonance. You can say that. But it is clear that you said what you believe, but you don't want to live out, and you have no desire to live that out. Live up to what you said. And that's where Christ is saying, this people honors me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. In vain do they worship me, teaching human precept as doctrines. You abandon the commandment of God and hold to human tradition. Human tradition itself is not bad, but when it is used for dehumanizing what is not having, what is oppressed, that is oppressed, then the tradition becomes evil. It is true that Methodist Church has what they call quadrennial. Whenever I said this word, my tongue twisted. 4 different principles that they have to maintain or to grow our faith. One of them is Word. There has to be the Bible. Second one is the experience. We have to have experience, spiritual experience by which we can grow, we can define who we are in Christ's Spirit. And the third one is tradition. We cannot ignore all the sainthood of the church that has accumulated all the experience and codified in church doctrines and otherwise, we need to respect too. And the final one is reason. We cannot kick this reason out. It's simply because we believe in something doesn't necessarily mean that our ability to think and make the reason stepping in this mix so that the church will be at its best shape or best hope and best possibility is simply you cannot ignore the tradition. Yes, we cannot ignore the tradition as long as it promises to show the reformation that has been continuous in the past will continue here. And the tradition will not dehumanize. Tradition will not block you from growing up, moving forward. Then the tradition is important, but the tradition itself is becoming the truth that is not changeable, that everybody has to be living according to what the pastor had to say. The pastor, what pastor had to say is important, but that cannot be predominant of who you are now and who can be in the future. I personally believe that the truth is not something that you conclude, but I believe the truth is something that you become. I'm not defining this too well, and I'm in trouble. I'll try it again. Truth is not from the dictionary where the word is explained that you know as an information either, or you conclude based upon your experience that it stays with you as a noun. That is not truth. I firmly believe that when John's Gospel, 8th chapter, talk about you know the truth and the truth will set you free. When it said that, I believe the truth is not the informative language, basically inform you. It is not about you conclude, but it is you becoming. To me, that's truth. Think about it. Tradition without truth is a problem because it doesn't allow you to become. God is interested in the past and in your presence, but at the same time, God is interested in what you will become. And the truth has a big portion in that. Christ himself, with the Good Samaritan, violate the law, tradition there, speaking with the woman at the wall in Samaria. He was clearly violating the law. He was entertained by Mary Magdalene, crying and then wetting his foot and drying out with her hairs. It is a clearly defiled action. It is against the law. Woman at the scenery of adultery, asking people to throw a rock if they have nothing to do with sin. That itself is ritualistically wrong. Jesus is violating all this. And Jesus is saying to us, you know the truth and you become what you believe in your praying heart that you should be in that given moment. And be true and authentic as much as you can. That's what we call freedom. So that the real question for you and for me is, how free are you? Freedom is not, I think, nobody touches you, nobody bothers you, have 24 hours, all the time that you have, all the space you want, and you just hanging in there, doing nothing. Eric Fromm was right. that is not freedom. That is wandering. You're lost. But the freedom never been freedom from. Freedom from is only 50% of it, but the real meaning is the other 50%, that is freedom for. You are free for what? You are free for creative, transforming hearts for the next moment. Be fully God-like. You are not saved from, but you are saved for something. Listen, ask this question to yourself. How free am I? The Bible is not interested in free from something. You graduate some oppressions, but more than that, you are free for what? Make me a captive, Lord, and then I shall be free. Force me to render up my sword, then I shall conquer be. This paradox, the mystic of these words, make me a captive so that I will be free, is to say that freedom for what? I voluntarily make myself a captive before Christ so that my real freedom for will live. Freedom to control is given up, then the freedom, the real freedom, comes to you. My will is not my own till you have made it yours. Listen, I am and I was a Pharisee myself. Once upon a while we experience that we are the modern Pharisee, contemporary Pharisee. God's blessing is to intrude our lives and set us free. Set us free so that the life will be free for something that is meaningful and that is so spiritual and that is so true. In the name of Christ. Amen.